Welcome to the show, everyone. I have a topic that we've not really talked about in 8 years. It's been a topic that we talk about within a show, but it's never had its own episode. Today, we're going to talk about meditation and how to start a meditation practice. If you are listening to this on the podcast, come on over to jjfilzanes.tv and meet Katie. We did a video and I'd love you to meet her. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, you have found me through Katie or because of the topic meditation. Hi, I'm JJ. This is my show. What does that mean? I'm going to talk. And if you don't like me, totally cool. Katie, where can they find more just about you?
At womensmeditationnetwork.com.
Great. So look Katie up and follow her if you don't love me. And we're going to have a great conversation. So welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So you and I go back a long time. We haven't been in each other's lives, but we met a long time ago when we both started podcasting, I think. Do you want to give us a little bit of a background on your podcasting journey before we get into the topic of meditation? Because I've been podcasting since 2014, and I think you were probably doing it before me.
Yeah. Actually, I started right in the beginning of 2014. I launched a podcast back then called Biz Women Rock. And for just shy of 6 years, I ran that podcast. I was a business strategist. I helped women start and grow their companies, grow them very intentionally. And so, you and I orbited each other in the podcasting space and all the different events and all that sort of stuff. Obviously fell in love with podcasting because it was just such a really powerful medium. And in 2018, I started the year like ready to go. Let's like blow up this business and everything's going to, grow this year. I'm so excited, loving what I was doing. And then in April, actually at one of the podcasting events you and I were at a week before, I had found out I was pregnant with my second daughter. And in a heartbeat, just knew that entire podcast, that entire business that I had wasn't what I wanted all of a sudden, which was terrifying because that's what I knew. And to make a very long story short, in the kind of quiet self-reflection time that followed that, I came up with this idea called let me build an entire network of podcasts all dedicated to meditations for women. So fast forward, I now have 8 podcasts that are part of the Women's Meditation Network and that all are meditation for women in some shape or form.
Yeah, I was listening. I even have an affirmation one, which is cool.
I do.
So if it's something because I thought about, when people are driving and they're listening to podcasts, obviously you really don't want them driving and meditating, but it's a kind
don't get into the calm space.
Right. But the affirmations are a great thing to listen to while you're driving because it can start your day off really well. So,
yeah.
So let's talk about your journey with meditation. Even were you a big meditator before you started the network, and what kind of practices and how did you, I know you're Sag. And I have 3 Sages. So in terms of the fire energy and the doer, you're a good producer, you're a good doer, you're very strategic. And, we have a lot of things in common business wise in that way. So talk about your meditation relationship.
Yeah. So I first discovered meditation when I was 18, 19 years old. I was taking a yoga class at college, and those last 5 minutes of my first yoga class, we were down in, the Shavasana position, and the teacher took us through a guided meditation. And I came out of that. It was 5 minutes, but I came out of that like transformed. I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. What is that? And so I just slowly over time, and that was 20 plus years ago. So slowly over time, I just kept seeking out meditations. And, back then that was, 2000 or 1998, 1999, 2000. So, I didn't know about, and there really weren't like these digital meditations that I could easily access. I was going to the library. I was like searching for CDs of meditations. So I kind of learned a little bit of like an old school hard way of just like being quiet with myself, not necessarily having a lot of guidance. And I can still remember the very first time I really tried to do that. I was like pulling my hair out after 2 minutes about how frustrating it was. And oh my gosh, my brain's going in 1,000 different directions. But I continued to just practice very imperfectly, which is still what I consider my practice today, like very imperfect. And, fast forward, came out to Florida and would just seek out different ways to meditate in some way or just to learn about meditation. So that brought me to our local Buddhist center. And I was in, whatever meditation series that they were in at the time. And I would go through many of those. And Fast forward another year or two, I was, a friend randomly invited me to do like a meditation group at her house. Sometimes it was 2 of us, sometimes it was 10 of us. And I did that for about a year and a half. Finally, eventually I stumbled across podcasts somewhere along the way, like, oh, wow, like they have these on podcasts. This is great. And so over the years, my meditation practice, it's just this amalgamation of a little bit of everything. There's no I've done all sorts of types of meditation. I wouldn't consider myself an expert at any type of meditation, but I use it as a tool very proactively in my life to get quiet when I need to get quiet, slow my brain down when I need it to slow down, go to sleep. I have used it to fall asleep for many, many years. And I don't get up and meditate every single day at 5 a.m., with incense burning. That's not my practice. Some people, that is their practice, and that's amazing. But I've really just reveled in using it as sort of this tool in my toolbox of like, I want to feel good today, and I want to have a good life, and I want to have an intentional life. So, okay, today I can meditate because, my brain's going haywire in 12 different directions. So let me use this. Or I want to go to sleep, or I want to think about, these big goals I want to set, so it's just been this very constantly changing, but very simultaneously stable resource in my life that I love. And through these meditations, it's been really fun to share that with people.
When did you get the idea to do the Women's Meditation Network and start the first podcast?
So as I mentioned before, I had just gotten pregnant with my daughter, Savannah, and back in 2018. And I was going on walks with my husband every day, and I was doing the bare minimum in my Biz Women Rock podcast and business. And that business had been thriving. And I was like on the precipice of launching like 3 new programs at that particular time. So it was really scary for me because I was like, I know I don't want to do that, but that's very terrifying. So I'm just going to do the bare minimum while I sort of slow down, get quiet, and think about what it is I want to do. And so my husband and I were walking, and he and I just, one day I'd be like, I could do this. I could have a toddler and an infant and run this massive company that, I'm doing right now. And then the next minute I'd be like, I'm done. I don't want to do any of it. I want to be a mom, and that's it. And so one day he, had finished, it's been about a month of this, and he finished letting me vent. And he just says to me, he says, well, what about that meditation idea? And I was like, well, what about it? So reference point, 4 months before at my sort of January, big, strategic planning time for the year, one of the many ideas that I had written down on my strategic plan was, I want to create a meditation podcast for women. I was wise enough about podcasting to know that it didn't exist. At the time, there was only one other meditation podcast dedicated to women, and it was for transcendental meditation, which is a very specific type of meditation. And I was appalled that it didn't exist. I was like, I can't, there's a lot of meditation podcasts out there. I can't believe that there's none just for women. So I sort of had this idea back in January, and, like all plans that don't fit inside the exact box of moving my business forward, it was an outlier. So I just sort of put it aside and didn't do anything with it. Now, here we were in May of that year, and my husband says, what about that meditation idea? And it was that seed that got me just able to brainstorm. And so he and I would just for months, actually not for months, for a couple of weeks, really, just what could this be? What would this be? What's the possibilities here? And how could I structure that? And how could I make that work now? And what do I do with this other business? And so we just brainstormed all that out. And by July 22nd, 2018, I launched my very first episode. So I was very quick to move. I'm a doer. So once I saw the vision, once I got really clear, like, okay, this podcast as a business is very different than what I was doing. It's a very different model than what I had been doing before. But I was really clear and warmed by and guided by the fact that this is the work I want to do in the world with women. And I could do it. I had been doing it with women entrepreneurs. Now I could actually cast a wider net and do the work of like directly speaking to their souls through these words, through these guidance, the guidance of these meditations. And I could really make a difference on such a personal level. So that felt really good.
you have so much now, and I know you see which are the most popular, and you have one for sleep, and you have one for the morning, and you have the affirmations, and you have sounds, ambient sounds, and so there's all these different shows that provide this for people. It's funny. I was looking for, so my massage therapist comes to the house, and she has music, but obviously it's my house, so I can use my own music. And when I was thinking about what to listen to, because I was randomly going on Spotify and I was looking for meditation music and spa sounds, and what I did was I was wanting to do one of the high frequency sounds that I find on YouTube. And I did find a podcast that had like one of them, but I was like, why isn't there a podcast that has all of them?
Yeah.
And so in that way, like looking at what you can, what's out. I mean, I can't produce it because I don't own those sounds and those frequencies and those songs, if you will, those pieces of work, those audios. But I could, if I did, I would, because I see the need for it. I wanted it because I sometimes don't want to just have, because you can download it versus on YouTube where you have to just listen to it. But definitely seeing a need in the marketplace and having it be something that you want for yourself, right? Like you're looking for something and it doesn't exist. So one of the things that, for me, my audience consists of, well, there's men and women, more men now than ever, which is really exciting and fun. I've got a lot of men in my upcoming programs. And that's a blessing for all, and an honor for all of us, actually, when you have a man doing deep emotional work to witness that. But when we think about why people are attracted to me, it's the doer, it's the producer, it's the one who believes and is either looking for inspiration, or the person who's really in action, but looking for depth, looking for truth. I know I call myself someone like who attracts truth seekers. And that's the Sag part of me. I'm not a Sag, but I have many Sag planets. And when people hear meditation, I know one of the first things that stops them, especially people that live at a pace that you did, I am, but it's coming down now. And it's not even a fast pace. I mean, I manifested my dream home. I have personal time from 7 to 11 a.m. every day. I mean, and I don't work on Fridays. I mean, like if we look at my schedule, I'm not burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
But when I'm highly concentrated, like in the times that I am working, I'm supercharged, and then I get to shut off. And that's a great thing as an entrepreneur and a podcaster to kind of choose that. But I know for some people, making meditation part of a practice is a struggle. It has been for me, because there's, what kind do I do? How long do I have to do it? When you were describing your first sit and be quiet, I was visioning the scene in Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts, right? Portraying Elizabeth, who is sitting there and looks at the clock and it's literally been a minute. And she's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But then I'm also thinking of Abraham talking about how they started, how Esther, like they just put a timer on for, I think it was 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes became 10 minutes and 10 minutes became 15 minutes. And that was just a silent meditation. But let's talk about the power of the guided meditations, because I think when people, you don't have to meditate by just sitting in silence. However, I will say, after some recent fun plant medicine experience, because I'm on an experimental journey right now in terms of learning about other things that help affect our brain and creating new neural pathways. I did have an experience where I was looking at my trees and my backyard in a whole new way. And I know that I don't have to necessarily, I can do a practice that can help me do that without help, but it does take longer. And there is value in that, in having that perspective, which is kind of why I'm experimenting and learning about, what does this feel like? What does this look like? So I can model it in my own practices. I can now have a new awareness that I didn't have before, and a reminder and a self-reflection. So let's talk about the differences of the different kinds of meditations, and what you have done, recommended, seen work, the value of the guided meditation. How long are they? How often does someone do them? And I know it's all a personal journey, but in terms of your own witness of practice and your own experience, what would you say?
Yeah. If someone listening is brand new to meditation, or has been resistant to meditation because you are thinking, I can't do that, I can't sit still that long, my brain is always going haywire, I'm not doing it right, I suck at this, right? Like, first of all, I've been there. I have been there recently. Like, so I don't think there's one thing, sort of a common reality that I really want to make sure is described here to set the background, which is our brain's job is to create thoughts. Like that's its job, to move, to have thoughts, to constantly be figuring stuff out. We're not going to stop it from doing that. What meditation does in all of its various forms, and that's something else I want to talk about, is that it allows us to simply separate from those thoughts for a second so that we can understand that we are not our thoughts. We're so much more than our thoughts. We are this being that is observing these thoughts, right? In understanding and in recognizing that separation, we now, as conscious human beings, are enabled a choice. We can choose to be in those thoughts and to allow them to sort of run our lives in that particular moment or in a lot of moments, or we can choose to sort of be separate from them and allow them to sort of pass by like, clouds in the sky. And so the value of guided meditation is that I'll make this this parallel between a guided meditation and having a physical trainer. The value is that you could go and work out on your own, and you probably could, right? You could do your own thing. You could get your own, workout schedule all figured out. You could have written down what you want to do, or just walk into the gym. But when you have a trainer, you don't have to use that part of your brain. Like you can just show up and let the trainer tell you what to do. And then you just get to use all of your energy to do it. So there's a massive part of energy that you don't need to use because you're just there present with the workout, or you're just there present with the guided meditation. So what a guided meditation does is you allow someone like myself to walk you through and to use words to guide you through, usually relaxing your body, focusing on your breath, coming into a space where you're present, ultimately so that you can really detach from those thoughts and, or at the very least, understand that you can recognize them and let them pass by in any given moment. When we're able to do that, there is created a space. And in this space, that's the space that, some might call stillness, quiet. It's just this opening. And in that opening, this opening, this quiet, right? That tends to be what we think meditation should be from the moment that, that timer starts until an hour later. Well, it's not. Like, that's a beautiful place to be, but it's not there for the entire hour. Like, this is a practice of learning to elongate and expand that space. And it's not, it's not a straight line either. Just because I've been meditating for 22 years, 23 years doesn't mean that, that now I can meditate for longer in this space than I could back then. Like, it's seasons, it's life. It's like, where's my brain? Like all of this sort of stuff. It's just a constant, just like because you ran a marathon 10 years ago, doesn't mean you could get up and run one today, right? Like it's your body, your mind are constantly in practice. So the beauty of this open space and practicing being in this open space is that in my experience, and these are totally my words, that is where you hear the truth. That is where you can really connect to self. And why I believe meditation is so powerful and why I really do what I do is because this is where we have all the answers that we need. This is what we don't need to seek out the answers, or we at least know what is right for us and how to direct us where to go. So many of us nowadays are just so busy running and moving and achieving and, in this pace of life, seeking out other things. And that's great. But there's a difference between seeking out because you feel this emptiness that you just need to keep on moving and need to achieve and need to, acquire, versus this knowing of yourself and what you want, and letting that knowing of self guide you into finding and manifesting what you need, right? So this space, and the more that we practice being in this space, whether it's for a minute or for, an hour or however long, just gives us more of an opportunity to know ourselves. And when we know ourselves really well, we can hear that voice, and separate the noise out here from this voice inside. We are more liable to make decisions that are completely aligned with who we are and what we want. We are more likely to make decisions not based on what other people think and what other people's expectations are. We're more likely to create a life that we actually really, really love. And we're more likely to see when things aren't fitting so that we can adjust and shift. So I see meditation as this massively powerful tool that we can find and open up this space to ourselves so that we can then create from there.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm gonna retranslate that into law of attraction terms only for the people that, and not that they didn't hear that. I just want to give it another oomph, if you will. So meditation helps us to release resistance, right? Because we're always in a state of allowing when we're not in resistance. So you're either creating positive momentum or negative momentum, or you're in neutral, and that's where meditation happens. Meditation can bring us into a neutral space where we release resistance, so the things that we do want can show up for us and we can be guided, right? Hearing that intuition, being connected. I think sometimes people think it looks one way, and I think it looks many different ways, right? There's the guided meditations and the slowing down of the thoughts and of the feelings and of the energy that is probably fueled by anxiety and fear. And we want to like be able to, it's like a top spinning, and that we want to have that, or using your car and slamming on the brakes. You're not going to slam on the brakes, but you want to pump the brakes so that slowly it starts to slow down. So those thoughts start to slow down. And I think it also connects physically in terms of being present in your body, because too many of us are not, myself included at times, present in our bodies. Even though I work hard and often at it, and I feel very masterful in that, but I'm human and I get into my head, right? And I'm not always in my body. And so being able to practice being in your body and being in the moment, because we're always thinking, like, we're in reaction to either something from the past and pulling that forward, or fear of the future. And very rarely are we ever really in the moment. And as you were talking and I was listening, because I'm 100% in the moment with you, and you were looking for an example to meditation and guided meditation, I knew you were going to say training. I don't know why, but I knew, like, my intuition was like, she's going to say personal training. And you said personal training. I was like, okay, I'm in alignment. But it's right. And being in alignment is a place to trust where those actions come from, where when you make a decision and you're out of alignment, because again, what's fueling that is anxiety or a fear of something, or running from something, or running to something that you think you're going to feel better at. Because again, and everyone who listens to my show has heard this a million times, and I'm going to keep saying it until you all write it down and say it every single day. But the only reason why you want what you want is because you think you'll feel better when you have it. So meditation can help you get there, because it can help bring the feelings in faster by stopping a negative momentum that you created based on whatever belief. It doesn't even matter. But so I do love everything that you've said. And I kept hearing, being in alignment and slowing down and releasing resistance, because all the things that we want, if we just get out of the way, can show themselves to us. And it's not even, you have to do anything else. Just let go of resistance. Right. And meditation is that. Now, do we live in a state of meditation? No, but we could live in more of a state of neutrality and of no resistance, and allow ourselves to be guided. And I think the difference is when we practice this and it gets into our body and and our brain starts to slow down. I just had a live event called Awaken Your Dream Life. And we did talk about sort of whole brain living, and we made characters out of the 4 different parts of the brain. And character 4 would be the one that lives in this sort of meditation space of not becoming my thoughts, of not letting my thoughts rule me, and knowing that all is well, that I'm connected, that all that is part of who I am, and that there's no, like, time and space, we're fluid, time and space don't really exist. And being in that present space is something that you kind of have to practice. It's not going to happen naturally unless you create enough contrast to back you into the wall where you have no choice. And that's not a path we all want to do. So you can get out ahead of it by starting some kind of practice, to just like being in the gym and building a muscle and strengthening that muscle. We strengthen our neural pathways in our brain, especially this character 4, which is that peace and calm and knowing that you talked about, that is guided, that sees the bigger picture, that is higher vibrating than most of the other characters. But it's really that truth. And you're not going to get it through doing. It's like the difference between efforting and allowing. And meditation, while it is a form of doing, because you have to listen to something and you have to schedule a time to do that, but it gets you into the space of exploring that nothingness, exploring that disconnection from the thoughts. One of my therapists in the past who did hypnosis and EMDR, She was the last person I worked with, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 16 years ago. But she had a really, like, I really loved when she would do my hypnosis because she'd make them personally for me and I would listen to them.
Yeah.
But, and you talked about the clouds, and I've heard that one too. She had in your mind, you take your thoughts and you put them on, like you see the train coming and you put your thoughts on the train and the
Yes.
train keeps going. And I was like, oh,
Yes.
that one always is really good.
Yes. One of my
but-
favorite visuals is like sitting next to the river and allowing your thoughts to just go into the river like a leaf and like float on down the river while you're just sitting there on the
Ooh,
banks, right?
that feels
So,
good.
I love
Yeah.
it. So, to really answer your question of how, very practically, there's a lot of ways to meditate. There's a lot of types of meditations. And so a couple that I'll bring light to is, yes, you have your guided meditation where you could sit down, press play on, Meditation for Women, any one of the podcasts, right? And get guidance and just sit there and listen and just be present with that particular guidance. So that's one way. Another way is through moving. Like my husband is such a great example of this. He is not the guy who's going to sit down and listen to a meditation. That's just not who he is. That's not his gig. But he goes on walking meditations a lot. I don't know if he would call them that, but that's what they are. So moving meditations are great because generally speaking, you're moving, you're out in nature. And what it does is it does the exact same thing that, a sit down meditation does, which it sort of neutralizes the attachment to all of those thoughts. Cause all of a sudden you're looking at the trees, you're feeling the breeze, you're, feeling the motion of your body. You become very present to the moment. And those are where you can have, because you create that space, all of a sudden you have these great ideas, right? So if you're a person who's loves going on walks because you get to clear your mind and have great ideas, that's a moving meditation. And then probably one of the most simple entries or baby steps into meditation, and I think that can be sprinkled out no matter if you're a beginner or you've been meditating forever, is what I call mini moments of mindfulness. And these are so powerful and so overlooked. Many moments of mindfulness are, you get in your car, you drop your kids off at school, you come back home. Before you get in the house, sit in the car and take 5 deep breaths. That's a mini moment of mindfulness. You're in the shower. I'm sure many of you can attest to the fact that you have all these great thoughts and ideas in the shower, right? And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Well, one of the things that you can do to actually make that more pronounced is you can have a mini moment of mindfulness. Instead of all the thoughts going of, what you need to do for the day, stop, take a deep breath, feel the water, land on your head, land on your back, feel the warm water kind of like moving down as it drips down, feel your feet on the shower, the bathtub floor. It naturally propels you into this space. All of these examples naturally propel you into the space of gratitude for the moment, right? And it changes your vibration. It changes your energy because all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm really grateful for this hot shower. Like not everyone around the world gets a hot shower every single day. Like that's really amazing. Wow, I'm really grateful for my house. I'm really grateful for, this space and, my kids' toys that are everywhere. 5 minutes before I was angry about it. And now I'm like, wow, those kids were like playing around. It was so cool. So like it completely shifts your energy just because of these little mini moments of mindfulness. And really what that is just getting out of your head and tuning into what is in that particular moment. So those are just all examples of how to get into it a little more. And really just, incorporate it into your day. Again, I'm not the one who's meditating every single day at the same time. I just sort of go with like what I feel like. Okay, today, you have those days, I call them on the fence days, where you sort of wake up and you could tell like there's a little bit of heaviness there. And you're like, I know I can either go down that slide of heaviness and sadness or anxiety or whatever it is, or I know I can go down a different path. Like I have a choice today. That's when I will sit and I will meditate and I will like get into my head. I will get into the space, right? And I will use that openness to make a conscious choice about how I want to move forward in the day. I don't always make the best choices. I might choose to go down and like, I just want to lay in bed and be sad today. And that's okay. Right. So, it's okay to have meditation be unstructured, imperfect, but the awareness of it as a tool and the awareness of bringing it into your day, of being mindful, the power of that is just massive in the sense of, this is exactly what you were talking about before. it allows you to start getting clear on what's right for you. Where are you in alignment? What choices do you need to make? What decisions do you need to make in your life to be in alignment, right? And then you can trust that truth. And it's terrifying at first when you first start practicing making decisions in the real world based on what you know to be true in you, right? But the more that you flex that muscle, the more that you practice, all of a sudden you start making some really big decisions that look crazy on the outside, but you know that they're the right decisions for you. And I'll give you this one brief example. So I spoke earlier about how I made this big transition from, all of a sudden I had this one podcast in business and boop, all of a sudden I'm pregnant and I don't want it anymore. And now I came up with this new idea. That was about a year and a half's worth of a transition period of me knowing I did not want the old business, knowing I had this new opportunity in front of me. And I shifted over a year and a half, pretty soon I had 2 babies, 2 businesses, and then eventually, one, 2 kids and one business. But that was about a year and a half. And I remember so many people commenting about how brave I was to drop that business and to walk away from something that was very successful. Like it was absolutely successful in its own right. And I always marveled at that comment because I didn't see it as brave. I just knew that it was the right thing. It was terrifying because I was, literally letting go of a very successful, financially successful business to go into a startup basically that was not making money. And I was happily going into that direction. And anyone on the outside would call me crazy, but I knew that that was the right decision. And so as much fear as there was, it was overpowered by this sense of like, I know, just keep walking, Katie. I know, just keep going. And I'm sure you have about 1,000 of those examples in your life, JJ.
The show Fit to Love.
Yeah.
I am in Podcast Paradise. And I remember hearing John's words in the back of my head, follow the path until success, follow the path until success. And I was 2 seasons, 350 episodes in, and my intuition was screaming at me. And it's like, they can't find you. This is not, and I'd put so much into it. And I was doing almost 6 days a week, somewhere between 4 and 6 episodes a week, video, like 3D HD video or HD video, it's like 3 camera shoot. And for just 2 of them. And then I just had to listen. I had to listen and it didn't really make any sense. And of course, the first show I put out was Spirit, Purpose, and Energy and didn't have anything to sell anybody or to give to anybody. And all of a sudden I get feedback and it was like, oh, I'm on the right track because I was starting over. Essentially, I was starting over. I didn't pull the show down, but I was adding new shows. And because it was a test, the whole thing was a test. And from the beginning, I said, what can I do for 2 years without making any money? And I did make money, but I wasn't serious. It was just like a test. And so, yeah, definitely my intuition and being in those moments. What's Chris's birthday? What's his sign?
He's a Libra. He's September 23rd.
Okay. I just wondered because when you were talking about his walking meditations for a long time, and I know those of you that have been listening for a while have heard me say this, I get my biggest downloads when I'm exercising by myself.
Yep.
Or with Doug. I shouldn't say that. Doug and I, because we're talking and we come up with good ideas when we're talking, but it's usually on a topic that whatever we're talking about, like I'm a little more focused on a specific topic. When I'm out by myself outside and it's either on the beach or now that we live in Ohio, I'm hiking 3 times a week and I'm in the mountain, but I'm listening to my music, which, would seem kind of counterintuitive because there's music in my ears, but it's because the music, it's like my character 1 and my character 3 are listening to the music. My character 2,
they're distracted.
Everybody's busy except character 4. And now I get to hear that. And I get the most clearest downloads in that kind of exercise meditation. Again, mine has music in it. And sometimes when I don't have my music, which I didn't last week on my rollerblades before my event, I was like, wow, where did my music go? I found it, but I didn't have it with me. And all of a sudden I'm in silence. And I did have I was like, okay, this is going to be weird. I'm going to be rollerblading without music. And that's fine. I still did it. And years ago, I might've been like, well, I'm not doing that today, but I was watching the ocean and and it gave me ideas about my event. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use that scene in my meditation at the end of the event. And so I think that even though we may gravitate towards, so I asked about Chris because I wondered if he was a fire sign or had a bunch of fire in him too, because while I think like leaning into your strength, so mine is definitely exercise with music by myself outside, cardio. But that doesn't mean that I don't need to learn how to do the opposite. And so I've been sort of on the like, oh, do what works for you. And now I'm like, all right. And since I've been working with core wounds for so long with people right now. And the answer to how to heal your core wounds is literally do the opposite of what you normally do. So there's the value. We're talking about creating new neural pathways. If you want to reduce anxiety and depression, if you want to stimulate more joy and happiness or more allowing, if you want to be more present in your body and be more present in because if you're actually present right now in this red hot moment, nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
It's the thinking and the stories that create the negativity and the fear and the body response to those stories and those pictures in your head. But if you're really literally in your body right now, nothing's wrong. It's perfect. Everything is perfect right now. You are breathing, you are listening, you are connected, you are in alignment. So, so that's just an encouragement for people to, regardless of whatever you gravitate towards, there is value in stretching into something new. So in terms of, leaning into the things that I love, your mini moments of mindfulness. I think that's brilliant. And I think if people were to do that once a day and then use one of your guided meditations once a day, and then figure out another way, even in dancing and in music and in joy. Again, when we activate the parts of the brain and we get them busy, the ones that, have the fears and negative stories, we can allow other parts of our brain to reemerge and to be clear and to be connected. But I think that I recommend everybody do a little bit of all of it and practice with a little bit of all of it, because if you literally can't sit still for 2 minutes, that's a problem. And I'm not saying I can, I'm just saying that's like saying, well, I'm not good at that, therefore I'll never do it. But there's value in stretching. There's value in practicing. There's value in creating new neural pathways for yourself, especially if you're someone who's battling any kind of, anxiety or physical ailment or depression or any of that. You're not happy. Well, you're not going to get happiness chasing and being in a constant state of flux. All right. So let's get people started. Tell everybody where they can find all the things you offer in terms of your meditations and where they can find them.
So the easiest thing to do is to go to womensmeditationnetwork.com, and there you will see all of the different podcasts. And you can go search on the podcast player you're listening to right now. Just type in meditation for women. All of them will come up, and you can go choose and subscribe to any of them that really call to you. Morning meditation for women, sleep meditation for women, meditation for women, the original that has a little bit of everything on it. Daily affirmations, just like you said, I have a sleep meditation 3 hours each episode. So all of the sounds. So go and subscribe to any single one of them that really call to you, and just try. Like they're meant to be this library for you to choose from. So what I've heard from listeners is that they will sort of go through the library, they'll scroll through the feed and they'll choose one whose title really calls to them at that time. That maybe something that they're feeling, or something that, kind of answers what they want to get rid of, or how they want to feel, whatever that may be. So just go through, find them, subscribe, choose one that really speaks to you, and, just sit back and relax and let me take over. Let me guide you.
And for those of you that are listening today, November 1st, 2022, you can hear me do a meditation on Katie's show. Did we pick morning meditation for manifestation or attraction?
I think that that's the one that we're doing. So yeah. So JJ's lovely meditation voice gets to be on the podcast, and it'll be on morning meditation for women. It'll be on that particular podcast. So go tune in. She has a lovely meditation. If you have not already heard it, you need to hear it. If you have heard it, you need to hear it again. So it'll be on the podcast there for you to listen to.
Well, they haven't heard it because it was part of a package that I was selling. Ooh, and so unless they have purchased it, they have never heard it. I do not share those.
And now you get it.
You literally got a paid meditation that I've never published on your show. So everybody can go check that out and let me know if you like it. I was thinking about, sometimes for me, in order for me to take action and do something, it means I have to lead it. Like leading my own meditations in my Empower You membership, I have new moon circles and full moon ceremonies now. And I do a meditation on both of those. And in all of my intuition course and my law of attraction courses, and I do the meditations, and it helps me because that's how I'll commit to it, is if I lead it. So I find that leading it is the best way for me to be complete. I'm sure you've experienced doing them has upped your practice because you're the one leading it. And all of a sudden
it's time.
It's so
big
fun.
Time. And the actual process of writing and speaking them is this meditation process for me too. So yeah, totally. It's really powerful.
Well, please check out Meditation for Women. And all of the links will be either under this video if you're on YouTube or in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast. Katie, thanks so much for coming on.
JJ, you are amazing. Thank you for having me.